What is your take on the theme for 2022, Break the Bias?
I think it's absolutely essential that we do break the bias. And by that I mean all of us, men and women, because, that sort of conscious or unconscious bias, those stereotyping that we do with people, I think that is people's, sometimes that's their default. And we need to learn our own biases. But as I said, men and women need to work together to break them. And also I think we need to with children as well. And one of the things that I'm involved with is a charity called LoveTech. And it's trying to encourage girls and young women into tech and into STEM subjects, so that these jobs are stereotyped and they're seen as traditional sort of men's jobs. The statistics around young women being interested in STEM, sort of at school, but then actually going on to do it at A-level or going into university and then going into the world of work in those areas is really, really low. And those stereotypes, they start so early. They start with children when they're about 6 or 7. So I think if you can work with children as well, which is what LoveTech's trying to do, then I think that hopefully can make a real difference.
Do you think enough is being done by your industry to break the bias?
I think there could always be more that is done. I think, given my experience, I would say the finance sector is probably better than a lot of them. And I guess the finance sector, especially if you look at the large institutional types of businesses, such as the big, sort of banks and insurance companies and such, I suppose they have more, if you're being honest, sort of more resources. And I think they probably have better sort of policies and procedures, because a lot of that is really important. It's fine to have great, sort of stuff that you put in the public domain and in your marketing materials, but actually it needs to work at a grassroots level. So you need to look at your policies, procedures around how you recruit people, retention, how you promote home working, that type of thing. And probably bigger businesses have more resources around that. But to be fair, I think in my experience on the Isle of Man, some of the smaller businesses on Ireland do a lot of great work, and in my experience a lot of the CSPs do an awful lot of good work as well. And if you look at senior women within those organisations, I think that's quite an inspiration. And certainly my own firm, Appleby, we're trying to do a lot of that, sort of a lot of work around that as well, right across the group, because we have sort of 10 offices in different locations. So we can get lots of interesting data and insights from, our colleagues in different countries. And one of the things we're looking at, about 6 months ago, we started a sort of diversity and inclusion working group right across the Appleby group to look at these types of issues and make sure that actually we are getting those insights from our colleagues and actually making sure that we then, we act on them. And I think that's massively important. So I think right across all businesses, we can always do more. We have to do more, because if you look at the stats around senior women in all businesses, from FTSE companies right down to smaller businesses, the stats are not as good as they could be. So yeah, there's always more work needs to be done.
Dead or alive, who would you spend a day with?
I love history, so any historical character, to be honest, I would absolutely love, whether it's Queen Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots, Queen Victoria, any of these strong female leaders, trying to lead in a very male-dominated world, I'd love to meet. One of my heroes who I did get the chance to meet was Lady Hale, who was the president of the Supreme Court at the time where there was the judgment about the sort of prorogation of Parliament. And she came to the Isle of Man just shortly after that judgment, and she came to speak to the Isle of Man Law Society, and I got the privilege to meet her. And I only got to speak to her for a couple of minutes, but to be able to spend a day with her and pick her brains, I think would be fabulous.
What did you want to be when you were younger?
Because I loved history, I did actually want to be a historian or an archaeologist. I grew up during the sort of time of Indiana Jones. So, in my dreams, I wanted to be an archaeologist, and I think I probably still do. So I'm not sure how I ended up as a lawyer. I blame my father for that. But you never know. Once I retire, I might become an archaeologist.
How did you start out in your career?
Well, as I said, I never really intended to be a lawyer. My parents, when I finished my hires, as they were in Scotland, my parents were buying a new house, and I spent some time in the solicitor's office during a summer holiday, and that didn't actually put me off. I just thought, this is quite interesting. I think I could do this. And so I went to study law, and then when I finished my degree, I had to do the Diploma of Legal Practice, as you had to do at that point in Scotland, which was all the sort of practicalities of studying the law, not the theory, which was fabulous and I loved, but the practicalities, which were less fun. And then I did my traineeship for 2 years in quite a small firm. And I have to say I hated it and just thought, this is not for me. I do not want to do this. I do not want to do this type of law. My husband then got a job in America for a couple of years. So we went to America for 2 years. And when we came back, I kind of fell into a job working in-house for a university in their commercialisation department. So looking at all aspects of intellectual property, patents, trademarks, copyright, that type of thing, and how the university protected and commercialised those. And as soon as I started that job, I thought, wow, yeah, this is it. I've really found what I want to do. And I did that for a couple of years and then went back into private practice, advising on intellectual property with a focus more on sort of software companies, software development and digital companies. And that's really what took me to the Isle of Man 16 years ago. So slightly sort of serendipitous, to be honest. It wasn't part of some great plan, but I think it shows that actually, yeah, your career, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you do find what you love. And that's so important. So yeah, that's kind of how I've ended up where I am.
Will you help break the bias?